Hi there, I'm Ben Laughter. I work with our product team here at Engagifii, and you probably know already that we serve associations, agencies, and local governments all across the country. One thing that all of those different types of folks have in common is that they work with people who are either elected or appointed into their positions. People like county commissioners, school board members, mayors, and so on. Well, we're thrilled to announce a whole new set of functionality in Engagifii that we call terms. Terms will help you keep track of who's serving right now in what term, who's coming up for re-election, who was in that seat 2 terms ago, and a whole bunch more. Let's take a look together. So let's start looking at the new stuff on the All People list. Now, when I look at a person's positions, you might notice here that we have a term associated with Mike Katz's service. And then notice a couple of new columns, the term and the region. And then also another column calculating the amount of time that Mike has served in a termed position. So jumping into Mike's record and looking in more detail, you can see here that we've taken our already robust position and position history tools and augmented them with term information. So we should quickly differentiate between a termed position and a non-termed position. An attorney is not a termed position. Maybe an attorney general is, right? Some positions are simply hired for, others are elected or appointed. Now, when you look up at Mike's service as an attorney in the town administration, and then as a board member for Baltimore County Public Schools, you can see that one of those is serving in an elected term and the other is not. And then finally, if I want to see Mike's service history over time, all of the terms that he's served, in this case only one, then I've got a full listing over here in this term history button. Let's take a look at another example. Where Mike had only served in 1 term, Ruth here has served in 2, both of them as board member. Now they might have been in different positions for different folks. Maybe someone served as a board member and then as a board president. In this case, Ruth has served as board member twice, and you can see both of her terms here with the most recent on top. It's worth pointing out as well that this new functionality will allow you to have people who serve multiple consecutive terms or non-consecutive terms. We're aware of how often people will leave an elected or appointed position and then later return to it, skipping a term in the middle. That is perfectly accounted for here. One thing we're hoping to accomplish with terms is to help you consolidate your workflow around election outcomes to be more efficient. You're likely needing to update a lot of individual records, and you're probably going to want to go either term by term or organization by organization to do that. So let's take a look now at some of the different ways that you can update which terms people are in. So for our purposes today, we're going to look at Baltimore County Public Schools. Now, when I go to the People tab within the organization, you can see here that I've got several people aligned with it, most of whom are in elected positions. I can choose to filter this list and see people who used to serve in past terms or have past terms, such as Elmer here, or Ron, as opposed to someone who is serving in just simply a hired position. I might have the superintendent listed here, who is not an elected position, for example. So now that we know how to find and consume information on the updated Organization People tab, let's think about what we can do here now as it relates to terms. And keep in mind, I might be a staff member of the association accomplishing these tasks, or if you're comfortable with it, you could delegate this task out to your board clerks, board members, board secretaries, county clerks, the person who typically does work on behalf of the actual members at your member organizations. Completely up to you whether you want to federate that out or keep that control in-house, but the option is there for you to permission your member administrators to be able to do that work as well. That said, the work that I'm going to do here is basically to update a couple of these records based on what might be happening in the election. Now, you don't have to do the work of updating terms from the organization itself. There are a couple of other ways of doing it. Now, here I am on a person's record, in this case, Elmer Fudd, one of the board secretaries for Baltimore County Public Schools. And let's say that Elmer has just re-won his election. I can simply go into his record, go into edit mode, go to his position, and add another term to that existing position, and I'm done. But we think you're likely to want to do this in groupings, and so let's look at how we might do that on the organization itself. So you're looking at your election results, and you've got Baltimore County Public Schools open, and you need to make changes to people's positions based on the results. We've got several ways of doing that here, including removing people from positions and terms outright if they were added by mistake, or managing their position or ending their position if they lost their election. Let's say that Elmer here has either lost his election or is retiring. Quite simply, I'm going to go to End Position and set the date in the future that he will vacate his seat. Now, on January 1st, his position will simply come to an end. You would then add the new person with the new term who's replacing him in that seat. Now let's do two people at one time. By multi-selecting and going to the wrench, I can choose End Position and see everybody that I selected here along with all of their positions. Now, you'll recall that Mike has two different positions. One is attorney, which is not elected, and one is board member, which is. If I were only looking at elected positions on this list, I could apply a single end date to all of them by using the box in the very top right. However, because I have a mixture here, I'm just going to go one by one and select them and click them at one time. Now on January 1st, just like with Elmer, those two will simply drop out of their positions. So every now and then mistakes will happen and someone will get accidentally added to a position or a term that they shouldn't have been added to. So let's take a look at those. You can do these individually or en masse using the wrench. In our first example, let's say that Ruth here was simply accidentally added the position of board member. She's not a board member, never was. So I can simply remove that position, and that'll remove all information regarding that position as though she never had it. Also, if someone has been accidentally added to a term that they did not or will not serve in, you can remove that association as well, quite easily. Once you're finished updating all of your elected and appointed people on this organization, we wanted to make it easy for you to move on to the next organization in one simple workflow. So you'll notice the two new arrows in the top right. This will allow you to quickly move from one organization to the next, and then work on that one, and then the next, and then work on that one, and so on until you've made it through all of your organizations and updated everything. So far, we've covered how you can update terms on an individual, as well as go organization by organization, updating people en masse. Now, let's look at how we create a new term ahead of the next election, as well as see all the people who are serving or have served in a given term. In the left menu, underneath the Relationships header, there's a new section simply called Terms. Now, within Terms, I can of course add a new term, but let's say I want to duplicate a pre-existing one. We'll take a quick look at that. I simply give it a new name, and then decide whether I want to copy all of the people from the old term into the new term. I'm not going to do that right now because I'd like to show you how to create one from scratch. So again, I'll start by giving it a name, and then I'm going to choose what type it is. Now, we'll start talking about flexible terms. What this means is it doesn't matter when the person's term starts. They're going to serve a certain amount of years, in this case 4 years, from that start date. So if you have flexible beginning dates, that might work for you. An example of that might be a Supreme Court justice who, whenever they get confirmed by the Senate, they begin their term. Now, a nuance there is that it's also a lifetime term, and you can see that we have accounted for that nuance here as well, if there's a version of that within your membership. Now, what we expect the majority of our clients to use is a fixed term date. That is more like the presidency, someone who serves from a particular date to a particular date for a certain amount of months or years. So you can see here that I've changed this to fixed term date, 4 years. And when I choose a start date, it automatically calculates the end date. I'm then going to decide which positions might possibly serve in this term. So I would include things like board member, county commissioner. I probably wouldn't include things such as janitor or school superintendent, hired versus termed position. We want to associate the position so that you don't accidentally pollute your term with any non-termed positions. Once I've made those decisions, I simply save that, and now I have a new term in the list that I can add people to. Once you've created your terms and populated them with people, you'll have a list that looks like this, term after term, with all the positions that are related to it and all the people within them. So you can go into any given term kind of like an organization or really any other list in Engagifii. And like with many lists, you can choose different ways to view it. So here, I've chosen to view it as an organization, and you can see here under Baltimore County Public Schools all the same people that we've been working with throughout this video. Back on the people view, like with most lists, you have filtering options. So here I'm going to filter by board member and just see how many people serving in this term are board members. Clear my filters out. And of course, I can see all of the terms that an individual person has served. I can click straight through to their organization or back to their person record from here. I can also export all of the people in my list to Excel. I can change my column layout around. I can sort by different criteria. I can even import en masse people into this term come election cycle, but we'll cover that in a different video. Let's say that another position has gone from previously being a hired position to now being a termed position. You simply find it in your list. I'm going to say Judge Executive today. That is now an elected position. And hit Save. And now instead of 9 positions mapped to this term, I have 10, the Judge Executive. And that, my friends, is elected and appointed terms for Engagifii. We're so excited about this release. We can't wait to hear your feedback and see all the cool things that you do with it. We know that you all play an important part in serving our public officials as well as a broader public good, and we're proud to be a part of that mission. Thank you very much for your time, your partnership, and your attention today. Enjoy terms.